Well, hey Kat, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for joining for Aux in Spain. You are my first interview, so I'm very, very excited.
Mhm.
And let's just dive right in. So, talk to me about where you're from and why you decided to become an Aux in Spain.
Sure thing. I am from Tampa, Florida, in the United States, and I initially wanted to become an aux in Spain as I was finishing up my TEFL certification and just looking at a bunch of countries around the world and what they accept, kind of their um, qualifications. I guess for being an aux, Spain was one of the most accessible programs, and then it was also something that would be a little bit more familiar to me as I had learned Spanish. I did not speak Spanish entirely, but at the very least, if I was going to move to another country, I wanted to kind of have a background in the language. So it was for those two things that I really looked at Spain.
Awesome. And how long have you been here now?
I was in Spain for 2 years, 2020, well, 3 years, 2021 through 2023. Um, and then I moved back to the United States.
Awesome. Oh, do you miss Spain?
Literally literally every day. It's just a wonderful place, especially in comparison to the United States, which, comparison is the thief of beauty or whatever it is. But yeah, it's just everything is better. There's trains, social life is great. Culturally, it's just really wonderful. It's a great place for extroverts, I think. And yeah, I miss it pretty much every day. And all my friends that I made here too, because a lot of people ox and then they stay here for 3, 5 years. As much as people go home, they still stay. So yeah, from time to time, I'll miss it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're visiting. At least you're getting that in.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to be back for a
Yeah.
little bit.
So talk to us about beta because I know you came through beta 1 year. So how was your experience with that program? I know people are like applying right now, so maybe if you want to talk a little bit about like the application process, if they gave you any support, and what was that like, transitioning over here?
Yeah. So I think my application to beta was a little bit, maybe it's out of the norm, but a lot of people will experience the same thing. I had applied to renew with the ministry for my first year to be in the same school, because if you apply within the same region, you're in the same school. But somewhere along the line, I was just moved to a different region. And I was like, okay, I guess this can be done. Um, so I was moved to Ana Lucia. It all set up to be at an EOI, an Escuela Oficial de Idiomas in Roquetas, which is like 7 hours south. But I had also already renewed my housing contract in Madrid at the end of the year prior. And so I was like, well, I should probably be a little bit responsible and stay in Madrid since I already have everything here. It'd be really expensive to move, all that stuff. So at the beginning of the year, sometime in August, September, October, when I was not yet working for the ministry for my second year, I applied to BEDA in Escuelas Católicas. Um, and I think it's because of that timeline, because I did not apply back in spring when the application typically opens, but because I was applying in August, September, October, and I already was living in Spain, I did not need to have a flight over. I did not need to work on a visa. I already had a TEFL certification. I already had experience as an aux. That they were like, okay, cool, great. We'll do like a small interview and then you're hired. I was placed pretty quickly. I think it was maybe like a week between when I applied, it sent the email to Esther, and then when I actually got a position in the school. And then I started on October 1st. So it was really, really a whirlwind application process, but incredibly easy. And I think for people, especially if you have additional certifications or qualifications, like a master's degree or a degree in teaching English or a TEFL or TESOL certification, I think, or CELTA as well, I think is pretty popular. That definitely helps you with your application. And I think as well, Beta is very much used to Ox's from Madrid reapplying. So it is more advantageous for you if you do have a visa already, if you are already living in Madrid or wherever you're going to live, because then they can actually access you and have you go to the school, see what's up, you're just more readily available. And I think that works to most people's advantage. But yeah, very easy application process. But I think also in February through May is their other application window. And I always hear they're pretty responsive. I mean, it takes a while to get through everyone's applications because, I mean, Madrid's the most high volume region of applications or whatever it is. I think, I'm not sure. But yeah, they're always pretty responsive and they do let you know well ahead of time what you need.
That's good to know. I mean, especially for me,
Yeah.
since I'll be renewing
Yeah.
as well. So that's actually
Mhm.
really great to know. And
Yeah.
what about the program itself? Like, because I know you did CIEE your first
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
and then you did beta. So maybe can you compare and contrast the two programs in terms of like hours worked, or if you had an issue with your school, for example, were they able to support you with that, etc.?
Of course. So it has to be said that the CIE is not necessarily the program itself. We are NALCAP entirely. And I think a lot of people miss that because we're just like NALCAP plus essentially. um, so the only thing that CIE really does is helps you with the move abroad process. And then kind of, we do have the orientation week where we talk about all this stuff, we do all these things. We have a separate orientation with the ministry. So we all tune into a chat with the education ministry saying like, what is Knox? What are your questions? Blah, blah, blah. And then after that, they do help you as like an in-city resource. So you can like show up to their office and be like, hey, I need help with something. Blah, 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 blah. So it's really wonderful in that way. I think it was good for me as a person who hadn't gone abroad before. This was my first move abroad. So I don't think if I was without them, I would have known how to do like applying for the TA or having a language school because you can do like an option to enroll in a language school, all that stuff. Really good for network and everything. But as far as it goes, I would say their support level is probably the same as beta once you get in, because I've also heard things from like RBF International where like once you get in, they send you an email with like all the links that you need to everything that you need to know. And that kind of is what happened for beta. So when I got my offer of employment, which is coincidentally also an offer of enrollment at, which one is it? Comillas. They send you the letter and the letter for the school, the letter for the class, and then you're enrolled in both. So, okay, what am I going to say? Oh, yeah. And then after that, they send you an email with all the steps that you have to take next. So it'll be like, okay, here's how you apply for your residency. Here's how you apply for your visa if you're doing the visa for the first time. Here's XYZ. They include information about your insurance. So I think that's in a separate email, but I was under Sanitas, I believe, that second year. And until I could get enrolled in the public health system, which I couldn't because of the TA taking so long for renewal. So yeah, you want to make sure that if you want, well, with beta, it's really good because you can, since you're paying into Seguridad Social, they give you the registration for that. You can turn that in, but you do have to have your valid TA in order to actually take advantage of all of that. So in the meantime, they give you insurance, but it's all that. Yeah. Okay. But to summarize, beta and CIE are pretty great in terms of support systems. You can always like message them, email them, and they'll be pretty responsive. CIE doesn't exactly handle anything related to your school. That goes through Aux Madrid and NALCAP because it's all of that. They can offer like support, like you're valid, but aside from that, they can't really do anything. I think that beta is a lot more active in responding to and addressing and mediating issues with your school as well, because they want to maintain that relationship with the schools, because the escuelas católicas, and they also want to maintain a good relationship with the Auxes as well. So yeah, I've heard good stories, bad stories, all in the middle, but I think they are pretty responsive when it comes to that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to know. And I think like the issues in school, it's like one of those things, no matter which program you do, it's really whatever you land in kind of situation, you know? There's some schools that are gonna be better than others or easier or more challenging, and, you know, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter which program it is, but it's good to know that Beta does, you know, try to actively kind of step in and support to maintain that relationship, so that's good to know. And then my follow-up
Mhm.
question is in terms of hours worked and, you know, how many hours a week is it? What was the stipend like? Maybe you could give a range,
Sure. Okay.
and yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So with CIEE or NELCAP, your stipend in the Madrid region, at least when I was working there, and I think it might change, I'm not sure. I know there's always like legislation on the block to be like, let's increase. But it was 1,000 euros per month, and it was stipend, so it was not taxed, and you did not pay into Social Security. And that was paid at the beginning of every month between the first and the fifth. We worked probably 16 to 20 hours a week. I was in Villanueva de la Cañada, so they were pretty lax on having us work exactly 5 hours. We would come in, obviously, at the start of school time. But as soon as we were finished with some classes, and then sometimes even then, they'd just be like, "Ah, yeah, they have an exam. Go home." I'd be like, "Okay, go on," which was really nice. It was a very lax school, and but as much as they were lax, they were also like they had us get involved in different things. It was a really nice relationship. I lucked out with that school. Um, so I'd say 16 to 20 hours, which is directly what it has to do with the contract. Half the auxins were split Fridays off, and half of them were Mondays off. So I was a Mondays off person. I think 3 other auxes got Fridays, and another aux got a Monday. So we had 5 auxes in total. Primary school, really good. I, to your point about it really depends on the school, it really does. And it depends on the bilingual coordinator, because some schools take that seriously, and the coordinator is someone who's been elected by the other teachers to do it. Other times the schools designate the bilingual coordinator, and you can tell that they do not want to be the bilingual coordinator. And all that stuff. And our jefe de estudios was also great because she wasn't like exactly bilingual. It was a bilingual school, but she like would talk to us in the English that she had when she could tell that we weren't getting something, and it was really nice. Okay, and then the beta school, I was in the center of Madrid, which was really convenient. I was paid, I think, gross around 800 something a month, but it depended on the month. Because I think in total I was paid 1,183 euro, and then after Social Security, it would be around like the high 800s. So it'd be like 890, 900 something. So it varied from month to month. And unfortunately, I don't have the pay stubs to reference at the moment, but it was pretty good. At that school, I had a more strict schedule. I had to be there Monday through Friday, and I had to be there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it was every day, 40 hours a week, regular thing. We did have the 2 hour break during lunch, so it was technically 30 hours a week. And it was in Central, so I could go off and do things in the middle of the day, which was very nice. But it was definitely a adjustment from my previous school. Um, and then also in terms of compensation, you also have an additional responsibility with beta. So in NELCAP, there's like this MOOC, the massive online something course, right? That you do, and you have a course, you pass it. You don't really get anything out of it, but you get a certificate of completion that's like, you complete the MOOC, good job. In beta, you actually do get a class certification. You take, I think it's called La Enseñanza de Idioma Bilingüe or Lengua Inglés en Settings Bilingüe. I'm not exactly sure at the time. But they enroll you in this course at Comillas. And so that's in addition to your regular scheduling, you do have to take like maybe 1 day a month to go to a seminar at Comillas, the campus that's located in Madrid in like the Argüelles, Conde Duque area. And then that's kind of it. So you get the formation aspect of it, which really you're supposed to have as a aux anyway, because it is like that not exactly professional role. And then you also have the responsibility in school. And it depends on the school how many hours you have, but I think typically it's closer to 30 or 40 with most of the beta auxes that I've talked to. You're definitely more involved.
Okay, good to know. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a lot of
Yeah.
hours. That's very different from
Yeah,
NALCAP with the 16 hours a week.
definitely.
Definitely. So something
Yeah.
to consider. Mhm.
Mhm. And you do get paid more or less based on your involvement. So I think if I was working 20 or 30 hours, I would have a base pay of 800. But since I was working 40 hours, that base pay was like the higher base pay. So
Okay, so it's definitely a range. Okay, good to know.
mhm.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for answering my questions about beta. Before we say goodbye,
Mhm.
I would like to know what was your favorite thing about being an ops in Spain?
Oh yeah. I I mean, obviously the kids are great. I've like my first year especially, I was just like I had the best kids. Like I had two kids who not the for I don't know. They were fifth graders, so they were like B1, B2 level speakers, and they'd always just be like making up the weirdest English in their brains and telling me it. And I didn't care because I'm not a super English needs to be said the exact way. So they'd come up to me and be like, "Catherine, elastic bed," and I'm like, "What is an elastic bed?" And they'd be like, "And we went to the garden and over the weekend and we salta in the elastic bed." I was like, "You have a mattress in the back?" And they're like, "No, it's elastic bed." And it took us a while, but we figured it was a trampoline. They had a trampoline in the backyard. But throughout the entire year, these two students would just like, whenever they saw me, they'd peek around a corner and be like, "Catherine, elastic bed." And then they just leave. I don't know. It's hilarious. But the students are great. It's a wonderful opportunity just to like learn the language, talk to people, have a better conversational skill. But as much as it's also that, it's just I don't know. Even in comparison to the United States, I think part of being an ox is the opportunity to just live in Spain as a person who makes a pretty average salary, which is amazing. Yeah, I know it's not much compared to American kind of standards, but I'd like to say that in Spain, I make probably half, maybe a third of what I make in the United States, but I can afford three times more. So my quality of life is definitely way better. You can travel, you can work, you can have great relationships with your coworkers and meet a bunch of people from outside work, and it's just really nice. So I miss it a lot, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to try.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, wow, you painted that picture so vividly. That's why I'm
Yeah,
here again for my fifth
yeah,
year. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure to meet you and hear all about your input. And yeah, we'll wrap it up here. All right. Thanks,
nice
Kath.
to meet you too. Thanks
You
for the
too.
interview.